Well, hello, hello, and hello, and welcome to Rootworkers Round the Table. Today I have Dustin McMillan, and he is
Yeah.
coming to the table because my dear, dear sister Sonya is getting ready for a wedding. She has a wedding going on, and she's looking for somebody to sew up her clothing. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing, Papa O?
I am doing well. I'm very happy that you could be here with me. I am I have some really good news,
Okay.
and all I have left for a kidney transplant is my dental work done. And
Yay.
after so I did not realize I was this close to a living organ again. It's alive. It's alive. So that's been some really good news. I don't think it's
What are
totally
you
sunk through to my family yet, but I think they'll eventually realize, oh yes. But
what are you gonna do with all this free time when you're no longer on dialysis?
I'm going to tell you, I'm still throwing myself at the world. I am seeing what is going to stick. Um, I really can't imagine myself sinking back into a mundane world. I tell you that right now. Um, Magic and magical things and magical people, as crazy and witty as they may be, are my family, and I would love to work for them for the rest of my life. But I'd like to do other things. I'd like to travel abroad. I'd like to come visit
Oh,
you in the great up north,
yes, the Great White North.
white north, the great white north.
Absolutely, the Great White North. Yeah, for those listening, hello from Canada.
See, he is a Canadian person interested in what? What are you interested in?
Um, like my branch of the craft, or just in
Yeah,
general?
branch of the craft.
Um, I consider myself a Southern Conjure witch. I do depend on who you talk to, hill folks hoodoo, Appalachian hoodoo, um, Southern Conjure. I consider myself a Southern Conjure witch, but there's various different titles from all the research that I've done. So,
Power also comes from our mountains. Even though he has a great mountain that goes through him. How is Mountain doing anyway?
um, so what?
Never mind. Um,
Okay.
so how did you find the interest in it?
So it was actually okay. So I grew up, and by grew up I mean up until a year ago. Last month was my 1 year mark. Very strict Mormon. Like we're talking white shirt and tie, knocking door to door. Like
Elder
I
Dustin.
held different. Yep, I was an elder. I held different positions of responsibility in my church, and then I came out as queer, and I realized that it wasn't for me. No hate towards the LDS Church, but I just realized that wasn't where my path needed to be right now. And my boyfriend at the time, a wonderful man named Aaron, who's from West Virginia, is a eclectic gray witch. And so he never pushed me into the craft. He said it's an individual's journey. However, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And so
I may
we
not push you, but I could trip you.
and so I over the course of the 10 months that we dated, I really fell in love with not only the craft, but the South in like in general. Like y'all are just a very happy, very pleasant people. Um, your accent just makes me smile, and there's just something about the South. It's that Southern hospitality that just warms my heart. And so
That takes
I
10
started
pounds off.
learning. Yep. So I started leaning into Southern Conjure, and oddly enough, from where I was living at the time, there was a witchcraft shop, and the witch who owned it was a Southern Conjure witch. And I was like, hold up, what? And I'm not sure how she got into it.
In Canada?
But yeah. And so when she found out about Aaron, then she's like, oh, so,
butter and hot biscuits.
and so then like they just started like chatting, and like and she sends like a whole bunch of her, like, because she makes like candles in house, and a lot of it is very rooted in Appalachian folk magic. And so then like she has a lot of customers from the southern states. And then the first book, I have my stack of books here.
He's very
I am nothing a student. Was one called Crossroads of Conjure, which talks about roots and practices of granny magic, hoodoo, brujeria, and cranderismo.
Who is it? Who's it by?
By Katrina Rasbold.
Well, that's a shout out to you. That was his first book. What's your most recent?
Most recent one is Hoodoo Justice Magic.
How is that going?
It's good. Because I don't tamper too much with justice magic, but I always wonder, is what I do justified when I do it? And this helps me feel safe and secure in knowing that as long as I follow, not necessarily what Miss Ida, not sure how to pronounce that, but the author, it's not following her checklist, but following more in like the spirit of what she's saying, and realizing that as long as I stay within the bounds of what is reasonable, I won't have any backlash. So most of the time I just take a step away 3 or 4 days just to calm down all the emotions, and then see, is justice magic needed, or will karma sort it out?
See, my first thing is that if they smack at you first, turn the other cheek. And then if they come again, do not spare the rod. And take them harder than they came at you. So it will leave a little lasting memory inside their head.
Yeah.
And then there's I gotta do my one other one. There's a theory that we may fight and I may die, but I'm taking a part of you with me.
Yeah, so I've only done 2 justice magic spells before. One was definitely justified, and the other was for my own protection. So yet again, justified. But yeah, then I have a few other books. Old Style Conjure is probably the one I read the most often. It's a great resource. It's by Star Cassis.
Oh, I am friends with her.
Yeah, it's honestly my favorite book that I have.
She is
her breakdown
on the show too.
Sorry? She's
been on this show.
I'm making my way through the episodes. There's a lot.
Making the way through the world today.
Then I have Stickstones, Roots and Bones by Rose Bird, and a couple books by Jake Richards, Doctoring the Devil, Backwoods Witchcraft, as well as I have his Conjure deck.
Nice. And he's done the Conjure deck on me, which was
has he?
Very, yeah. Ta-da!
Yeah. So I have his Conjure deck, I have the Hoodoo Tarot, and a couple other decks as well. But yeah, that's my main focus is with that.
Now, I just have to say, this is your first year anniversary.
Yes.
And change. First year and change now.
Yes, it was the end of last month. So
how does it feel coming out of many closets?
I'm still in the broom closet. Because I'm letting my family adjust to the fact that I'm queer. I just told my mom about my current boyfriend, and his husband, because we are poly. So that's
No
enough
judgment.
of
No
a
judgment.
shakeup for that. And so,
Whatever makes your toes curl.
yeah. Oh, I should also mention, sorry, I guess my first real introduction to the craft was actually, me and Aaron we were long distance. And so we would send care packages together to each other. And for Salwyn, he actually sent me a book of shadows, and
Wow.
it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, it has explaining all the different tools of the craft. All of the images are hand drawn by him. All of the lettering's done by him. How to set up an altar, and this was really my very first true introduction to the craft, as to like what are the cardinal directions, what elements go with them, different symbols and stuff like that. The phases of the moon and what types of magic you can do with it. So that was my very first introduction, and then my first book was Crossroads of Conjure. And there's spells for protection and manifestation and stuff like that. So
Wow. That is very interesting. You really see, I tell everybody when I jump into something, I jump in crotch deep. You like fully submerge. You were
it,
like in the River Jordan somewhere. I'm like, and I understand. You don't want to kill the parents. You want to make sure that they are that they can handle things piece by piece.
exactly.
Because
Um,
going from an elder to a heathen. But
yep.
I've got a question. In the church's eyes, either way, aren't you getting thrown into uh like the the blackness?
Um, Not really. I mean, like, witchcraft is one thing where it's like, yeah, that's devil's work. When it comes to just being gay, their whole thing is feeling the attraction is not a sin. Acting upon it is. So as long as I stayed a celibate gay man that just never got married, never did anything with anyone, I could go to heaven just like everybody else. But
The
I
outfit,
realized that
the outfit isn't worth it. The outfit isn't worth it.
uh, so I realized I'm happiest when I'm happy. And I knew when I was 12 and I came out at 25. So 13 years is a long waiting period. And I had suspicions from when I was 8.
I didn't know that I was gay until somebody told me. Yeah, I just thought I just thought people naturally liked boys and girls.
Oh, okay.
That there wasn't that it was just normal. And until somebody put a word to it, it wasn't a good word that they put to it, but when they put a word to it, I realized, oh no, I'm different, and this is not a good thing. But
Yeah.
my my first time I ever had a crush was in pre kindergarten. It was when I had chicken pox, and a guy was fixing our house. He was very sexy. He was Portuguese. Um, he was missing a few fingers, but that's okay. No judging. We're all God's
Oh,
children.
yeah.
But he was
Yep.
just hairy, sweating, bandana. In the 80s, that sort of did things for me.
I can see it.
Yes. Oh, yes. But I didn't realize that it was anything different from anything else. But I'm going to tell you, I've been slow on the uptake with a lot of this stuff. So I can understand.
Yeah. People always seem surprised with how quickly I dive in to things. Um, for example, like I was completely dedicated to the church. And then when I came out, he wasn't my boyfriend, he was just my friend at the time. He's like, hey, it's your first Sunday, like, away from church. What do you want to do? So we went to the movies, we sort of had a day. And this may be a little too much for the podcast, but he also took me to a bathhouse.
Rock on. Okay, I'm cool. We're here.
So my very first Sunday ever choosing not to go to church, like ever choosing not to go. The only times I didn't go was if I was sick. Very first Sunday, went to a bathhouse. So yeah, dove in head first, both with Magick and other things.
That is beyond. That is beyond diving in the pool. That is pretty. No, okay. For everybody who's on here, I am demisexual. This is something I found out this year. So it is my first coming out year as well again. But for me, I have to get to know somebody. If I, like the thought of a bathhouse would freeze me up. I would be like singing Les Miserables, pretending I was totally covered with my hands, you know.
No, don't get me wrong. It was just me and this for like we didn't play with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that. It was just the two of us, just in a different setting.
You can make it if you try, just the two of you. So that is really amazing. In 44 years of life, I have never been to a bathhouse. Theoretically, I have never even seen one.
Well, maybe when you come up to Canada, I'll have to guide you through your first.
I'm gonna go to the Rock. Have you heard of the musical Come From Away?
I think so.
It is about Vancouver Island and 9/11 when the planes all had to land on Vancouver.
Okay. I don't think I know this
actually. It was in the Tony Awards not too long ago, but I'm obsessed with going there. And it's honestly just for a little tune in the middle of the first song. But I feel like these are hearty people who eat like chowder and stuff like that.
Well, you're thinking of Newfoundland and Labrador.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, The Rock. Like, Vancouver's not The Rock. Yeah, no, it's a Welcome to the Rock, like that one.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that song. I don't know the musical, but I know that song.
Come From
Away.
Yeah,
that's very much like. Also, there's actually been some dispute. I want your opinion as somebody from Kentucky, because me and West Virginia cannot agree. Green tomato chow chow.
Uh-huh.
Canadian food that America stole, yes or no?
You think you guys had it first?
Yeah.
No.
And you had it first.
Tomatoes. You don't grow tomatoes. Everything is cold there. It's probably still snowing. Sorry, I'm showing my prejudice. I'm sorry.
No, all good. But yeah, because we were chatting and I was like, oh yeah, like green tomato chow chow. And I was like, wait, when did you guys have that? They're like, what do you mean? It started here. And I was like, oh, hold up. No, it did not. And then we got into this dispute.
When did your first recipes come around?
I'd have to look into it. I looked into like the history during one argument, and he's like, nah, that's BS. Like,
if it is before the late 1700s, then you have a case for yourself. Because Kentucky wasn't even a place. Theoretically, before it was a colony, before it was even its own little mass, it was part of Virginia colony. So you can't even say. So if you can get people on a technicality.
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
I cannot believe what Pope Francis did in Canada.
In acknowledging the residential schools?
And he gave reparations for them, didn't he?
I know he made an official statement saying like it was wrong, it was genocide. I haven't I don't want to say yes or no. He could have done reparations. I personally am unsure of that.
I thought he did, but I cannot be 100% sure either. But it's amazing that the Pope can do it, but the individual Protestant churches down here can't admit to it.
Well, it took the Pope a long time. Like, people think that residential schools disappeared like in ye olden times.
Mm-hmm.
The last residential school was still up and running. It finally closed down in 96.
That's when I graduated.
So,
that's when I graduated high school.
Yeah, that's a year after I was born. So, yeah. But yeah, so people are like, oh, that was like forever ago. It's like, no, that's still like a large majority of the indigenous population.
But this Pope is a good Pope. You know, I remember them saying sanctify what's his name? Pope John Paul II. But I think really after this one, they're going to say sanctify him. Not Ratzinger. Ratzinger was horrible. That was like the Nazi Pope. But this new one, he goes and feeds people. He acknowledges the wrongdoings of the church. He says, who am I to judge about gay people? And he's the voice of God. He is the voice of the Mother Church.
So this popped into my head. It's like the one Pope joke that I know. But what meal do you make for a Pope after he's retired? Ex Benedict.
You're so silly. You are silly.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that the first time. Then they had explained that the last Pope was Pope Benedict. I was like, oh, okay.
That was Ratzinger. His real name is Ratzinger.
Oh.
And he's the one who said that the sexual stuff didn't happen in the United States. That was that children are liars.
Of course.
That goes over so well.
Right.
But I feel that this one has really done a lot of healing to the church. You know.
I hope so.
I hope so. And I hope that it just goes more progressive from here. That I'm actually hoping for more progressives as the years go on, God willing. Because I know that here we're fighting for our soul. Maybe you need to come down here with the justice spells.
Yeah.
Hey, have you been seeing what's been happening down here?
The world has been seeing what's been happening down there.
Because the stuff going on with Donald Trump, the stuff going on with the January 6th, cursing. It is bona fide and cursing.
And then with the laws that have recently been passed and overturning of Roe versus Wade, and I recently saw that there was one of the states said that they're trying to make it so that trans youth have to legally retransition into their gender assigned at birth.
They're also trying to get rid of same-sex marriage, which means Canada is going to be super gay.
And with that, I heard that they're trying to bring back sodomy laws, saying that sodomy is illegal now again. So,
you know, the reason that they're saying is that they never experienced it. It's something you have to experience to love. Otherwise, it just sounds scary.
I feel bad for straight dudes. Like, most of them will never experience bottoming. Like, I feel bad for them.
Well, you know, they have to realize, they have to come to, let's start first. First of all, this is things that have been genderly told and sexuality driven. But you know, people are not open enough to feel their own pleasures, especially in places like America. America tends to be very, very cover everything. You have certain places like Miami and LA, but most places have issues with it. I personally don't. I think the nakeder the better. Hey, you know what a sarong is?
I don't.
It is basically a piece of cloth that goes around you. A lot of people wore them during the 90s festivals and stuff like that.
Okay.
Really very colorful, very bright, and you can wear them all different ways. I can only wear them like one way, but anyway, the thing about it is I've been walking around in that, which is just a piece of fabric and just free to everything else, all the nature around me. But to me, I find being queer, I find very liberating because it allows me not only to express my sexuality culture, but it also allows me to take on a different role. It allows me to be louder. It allows me to be crazier. It allows me to wear this hat.
This lovely hat.
It is one of my. I feel like as a good Southern woman, I should wear a big floppy hat. Now I look a little like a fine nun.
Well, like one of the crazy things is, so ever since I was 14, I've dealt with an eating disorder and body dysmorphia. And the weird thing is, in the past year since coming out, the body dysmorphia is gone. And it's wild. Like, I went to a nude beach the other day with like the queer community. And
where?
That's here in Calgary. Yeah.
You're telling me there's beaches that you can get naked on in Canada. It's actually warm enough right now.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. I'll have to. Yeah, let me get the.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
I can tell you in Celsius, but it won't mean anything to you.
That's not true. It will mean quite a bit to me.
Are you familiar with oh my gosh, not Imperial. Metric, there we go. You're familiar with metric?
I am.
Okay. So, trying to get. There we go. So, like, it's not like super, super hot, but like tomorrow it's supposed to be 88 degrees.
That's lovely. That is a lovely day.
That's considered hot.
No, it has been hot in the South. Hot. It has been stick to your thighs hot. That
like over 100
places it has been. Other places it just feels that way. And then the humidity. Oh my God! And then the rain.
Oh right, because y'all are humid down there.
Oh yeah, Eastern Kentucky got flooded.
Ooh.
And the thing about it, we had not had rain in a long, long time. And Sister Sonya realized she left a knife in the ground to cut the storm. And then she pulled it out and it just started raining. And I was like, And I said, well, thank you, Sister Sonya. And then the next week it flooded. I was like, Sister Sonya was not responsible for any of the flooding in Eastern Kentucky.
I believe, I'm not sure if y'all call it that in Kentucky, but I think that's called a gully washer, if I'm not mistaken. Or is that a West Virginia thing?
A gully washer?
Yeah. Ever heard that term?
I have not heard. Now, of course, I am picturing you with fairy wings on, going down a little stream of water. And I'm like, that would be a gully washer. I could imagine him as gully washer. You could be the
Just call me
fairy.
Twinkerbell.
What?
I said, just call me Twinkerbell.
No, you could be the radical fairy. What was it? Because now I want to say Guzzy Waller, but that's not it. What was it? Gully Washer.
Yeah, Gully Washer.
Gully. I love Fern Gully.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's like those like freak storms that just like hit and it just like pours for like 20 minutes and then just like disappears, from what I understand. They happen in West Virginia.
What is it called when the sun is still out, but it's raining?
Oh, I remember. There's a phrase for this. What do y'all call it?
Now, I don't know what they call it down here, but in New Jersey and Rhode Island, they call it sun showers.
Okay.
And you know what I use? That is when I used to collect what I called sun water.
Okay.
I would put my bottles out and catch it because the sun is still out. Sun is still shining. And then there's water coming down. And then I use that for spells dealing with masculinity. You know, dealing with manly issues.
Yep.
Or manly problems. But I like using my waters and my dirts and stuff like that. Little bits from places.
Yeah. Recently I collected some rainwater, which I used in a ritual not too long ago, and I have some water that I'm unsure what kind of power it holds. So it's just chilling there for right now. Because I thought, oh, this is great, but some people said, no, that's chaotic. Don't use it. Because it was a water from a black moon during a solar eclipse.
I don't know what that would do.
I don't know, because I like some people say that like the solar eclipse can like block out the energy and it can like cause like chaotic results. Mm-hmm. But then there's like new moon, so like a black moon would be like twice as powerful of like a new beginning and like stuff like that. But I'm not sure how the solar eclipse mixes with the black moon.
You know, I cannot explain solar eclipse issues because I was watching this last solar eclipse, and because you know it's centered right near us in Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And basically, there's a point where it looks like snakes are moving around the ground. Black smoky snakes are moving around the ground. Weird energy. The next big one that's supposed to happen down here is in 2024.
Okay. Yeah, because it just chills over there with all my herbs and my spices and all that.
I almost had a water mishap, and my friend, who is I don't want. It's not Buddhist. She's a priestess from she's a priestess from Japan. Okay. And she's also a really good friend and a biochemist. But the thing about it is, like, she was studying in Japan and teaching in Japan, And she came back with a bottle of water, because we always joked about a virgin priestess getting water from an eastern flowing creek or river, and she brought this back. And I thought she was joking, and it was just like Japanese water, Japanese bottled water. And I was going to take it with me to drink. And then I thought, what if? What if this is actually from part of the water system in Japan? And luckily I didn't, because who knows what kind of amoebae are in there. Because Kentucky's
Yeah.
the brain eating amoebae, amoebus, amoebo,
Amoeba?
amoeba. That's
Amoeba.
correct. But that was the alphabets of amoeba. Singular cell organisms.
Yeah. There's like when it comes to some spell work, there's things that I'm like, okay, I want to like have this. I know all of these individual things
Mm-hmm.
come to the same conclusion. So like if you mix like certain herbs and you have like your oils and your crystals and all that. But then I'm like, okay, like for example, I was doing I think it was like a money and prosperity spell. So I have my money oil, and I was making a spell jar. I put in some cinnamon, and then I put in the oil, and then the cinnamon started to like clump up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so if it starts to clump, and then if it starts to like sour because it's like mixing, like how does that affect the spell work? How long do you use the jar for? And that's stuff that I'm still learning as like a baby practitioner, is trying to figure out like one, how to combine all those things so nothing goes wrong. And then with certain things, like sometimes you want it to rot, like you're doing like a rot spell, or using like stump water, stagnant water, toilet water, whatever you're using. You want that to happen, but when you don't want it to happen, like how long do you keep it if it starts to like grow mold or stuff like that? Like proper ways to dispose of it. That's what I'm still trying to figure out and trying to learn through all of this. Because I've heard there's another witchy podcast I listened to, and she did a witch's jar. She kept it in her garage, and like 8 months later, it just shattered, and there
Mm-hmm.
was like shrapnel, like glass in the walls. So thankfully, no one was in the garage at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Yeah." So that's when I realized that like apparently those things don't combine. So be careful. And I was like, "Oh, off the beaten path is what it's called. Witchcraft off the beaten path."
The first thing I have to say, if you want to learn how to make things like spell jars, try making soup. Start with one
Really?
start with one ingredient, and then work your way trying to heighten and level the soup up. Realize that it's witchcraft and cooking are very similar. You are both making art. You are
Okay.
making, and things that represent things to you will often find strength. You know, if the cinnamon bothers you that it clumps up, move to something else. Move to possibly using sticks instead of powder. You
Okay.
know, it is, especially when it comes to conjure work. Conjure work very is very down heart feeling. You know, what is it? What are these symbols? What are they making you feel? You know, certain types of conjure that I do will be related back to my Polish heritage and stuff that my grandmother did with me. Where some of the southern conjure stuff will have different flares in there as well. You become the vessel of your magic.
Okay.
You are the one who you are creating art with energy and art with intent. That's my feeling. Because very often when I'm putting a gree together or a spell bottle, to me, I think about that person and I think, okay, so this is a love spell. So I'm gonna put this love jar and I'm gonna put some honey in it. I'm gonna put a little bit of black magic dust because everybody needs a little bit of black magic in their relationships. You know, put things like a rabbit foot for luck, you know, putting a piece of broken glass so they won't fight, you know, just different things like that.
Okay.
Like when I'm referring to the broken glass, during weddings, I often have them break the first glass together. So they go through
Okay.
the fight together. So it's something that is already passed.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's what I do. But everything makes sense. Everything is like a sentence. Um, what you want is basically you break it down. I want this, this, and this. And through this, I want these things to happen, and these things to happen, and these things to happen. And you just put it together as at the end, when you put the lid on, it is, or when you tie the string around it, that is the end of the story. That is the end of your sentence. Now, sometimes I like to add a little bit to them, and I will add some knot work at the end, and or definitely bells. And so, if it's one you're keeping for a while, you can shake to add energy to that.
Yeah, with like the sound vibrations
Yeah.
and
But then I'm not someone who has them all around the house. You know, after a certain time, they have to go somewhere else. My love spells usually go to the river. Justice spells usually go in the sewer near the courthouse, you know, because I couldn't put it on the courthouse because then there's going to be a witch present. Now, Sister Sonya would do something like that,
no, you could use like dirt from the courthouse, but
oh, always collect dirt from everywhere.
yeah.
Collect dirt from your police station, your courthouse. Because if you're trying to evade the police, put a little bit of
Lost Day.
put it at the bottom of your shoes. The dust from a police station, so you're one step ahead of the police.
Yeah. There's a train yard that's like a 5-minute walk from my house, but I can't find where an opening in the fence is to get train yard dirt. And it bugs me because I hear the trains all the time, and I'm like, I want some of that.
Usually it's more rock around there.
Yeah.
But if you feel like rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, and the witch shop from a town called Red Deer. It's called Magical Elements. Corey, the witch there, she has ethically harvested graveyard dirt. And people are always like, how do you ethically harvest it? And normally it's either like you build a relationship with the spirits at the graveyard, and if you want like certain types of work, you'd get it from either like the grave of a priest or a police officer or a lawyer or a judge or what have you. But so that her husband has a friend who works with a construction company that excavates the graves, and they don't know who's going to be buried there yet, because she's like, if you get dirt from like the grave of a cop, you don't know if he was a crooked cop or straight cop. So that's where it could come into hassle. So they say, hey, we're digging a grave, do you want some dirt? She'll say yes. She'll get a 5-gallon bucket of it, and it's like blank slate graveyard dirt. It's not as powerful, but it still has the power and energy of the graveyard to put things to rest and to, you know, make sure that things stop popping up here and there and all that. And so she sells graveyard dirt. So that's some of what I have on my my spice rack. I have an entire spice rack of all my herbs. And yeah, I've used it to help with.
In there?
Sorry?
Graveyard dirt in there? Well,
yeah.
The one thing I would worry, don't let somebody put in your food.
No, I've been meaning to get a second mortar and pestle because I want one for spell work and one for actual food. Right now the only stuff that I use, because I don't want to grind black salt or sulfur or anything like that in that and then have it contaminate anything else. The only witchy thing that I grind is eggshells for making cascarilla powder. Because I feel like that's safe enough that I can also make other things with it.
Oh yeah, it's once you put nasty stuff in there, it is ruined. Like I would even get a third one if you have any raw dragon's blood, because once you use dragon's blood in it, it stains it.
Yeah. Actually,
hey, and if you don't like cinnamon, I think dragon's blood can be a good one to use instead of cinnamon.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, and then I believe it's like, in theory, like rosemary is sort of like the catch-all. Like it can be a substitute for any herb that you don't have, from what I understand. Kind of like how like clear quartz can be a substitute for any crystal.
I cannot grow rosemary to save my life. It evades me. I can grow lavender, cannot grow rosemary at all.
Interesting.
My cranberries are coming in though.
Okay. I remember growing up, we had this huge raspberry bush in our backyard. And we just get buckets and buckets of raspberries every summer. And now that I'm an adult and don't live there anymore, it's like $7 for a small thing of raspberries. I'm like, what kind of crime ring is this?
See, I grow raspberries. We do. They're a type of golden raspberry, but okay. I really want some big, because they're tiny. I'm like, they're as big as my pinky,
Yeah.
You have to take a whole handful of them to really satiate your need. But I want to eat some nice big red ones. And we have blackberries and gooseberries. And cranberries and strawberries. It's a very nice house. So,
yeah.
What are your next ventures in Magick?
So I found out from Corey at Magical Elements that actually I unintentionally started something called your Year in a Day project. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't realize that's what I was doing. I was just, because I was about halfway through before she's like, oh, that's what I was like, what? Never heard of that. And she's like, oh yeah, it's where you basically like dedicate yourself to the craft. You choose a project, and at your 1 year mark, you're a fully realized witch, or fully dedicated to the craft. So it started on Samhain of last year, and I came up with this idea that I want to make a broom. So I went out and I forged some grass and twigs and branches and such, and I bound it together with some twine. And I was like, okay. And then Yule came along, and I was like, I'm gonna go out and grab some grass. And so for every single Sabbath, I've gone out and I have forged grass or branches or what have you, on each of the 8 Sabbaths. And
Nice.
so, yeah, so I recently did Lammas at the
Mhm.
start of August. I believe Maybon is next in September.
Correct.
And after that, on Samhain, I
Hmm.
am going to consecrate the broom for the purposes in which I see fit. I'm going to bind everything together, and I'm going to have a year and a day project that is my broom that I use for spell work.
Are you gonna coat it with any flying ointment?
What's that?
You do not know what flying ointment is?
I do not. I know that I've also bought crystals that correlate to each of the Sabbats, and I'm going to wire tie the crystals in the order of the Sabbat, starting at Samhain and ending with Samhain. So I'm gonna have 9 crystals that are wire bound to it as well. But no, what is flying ointment? Do tell.
Flying ointment for it's something that helps dull the dull the veil. And so you are sort of living in the middle world, you know? You will see things that may not be there in to another person.
Okay.
It is a
So
mix.
things that don't fully exist in this realm.
Correct.
Okay.
We would often use it during Hunter's Moon or the Blood
Okay.
Moon. Um, one of one of the ways we took the Hunter's Moon and we made it where people had to run from spirits of the earth, and they first went and put out their offerings to the spirits and to the gods, and then they anointed themselves with the flying ointment. We had leaded and unleaded because we didn't want if you we didn't want if you didn't want the one with the poisons, we wouldn't give it to you. You know,
Very respectful.
so we had one that was without the poisons and one with the poison. And to quote the person who taught me about poisons, there's no poison, there's no poison plants, there's just poison dosages. So,
Yeah.
and basically, would, I was put to rile up the spirits at the top and started invoking and then release them. I gave them a head start and then released them. And whoever made it to the end first got got a wish. You know, they could make one wish and it would be granted by the earth spirits. But
Wow.
everybody, if you were caught, you had to give something up for a year. You had to offer up something.
So caught as in you see one of these spirits?
Oh no, according to what they said, you knew when you were caught. You know,
Okay.
you you knew, and you just at that point omitted something from something that you like for a year.
Okay.
And people were very honest. Not everybody was like, I murdered. You know, there were a bunch of people who got caught. Of course,
Yeah.
it was about 20 people running down into a waller. It went right down like a riverbank, and we had a fire at the end. Now, after everything was over, that was a different story altogether. That is when I first met the forest rangers. They had night vision goggles and they had their guns, and like they came out after we did, so we had to, like, there was a lot of sharp pointy things, as pagans do.
Okay.
And what? And then they said, "Is this all?" And everybody was like, "Yes, yes, yes." And then somebody next to me goes, "What about this?" And it's a double-edged athame. And we are now talking to these forest rangers, basically cops, but with a federal badge to them.
Yeah.
So I take it and I put it under my robe. The great mystery. No one could find it at that point. It had
Okay.
disappeared. But we were then, the president of the Student Pagan Association and myself were taken away by two different cops. And we were given so what were you doing out there? And of course, I was honest. I was
Yeah.
like, I was performing witchcraft. I was performing something that is legal to me and part of my religion. That is what
Yeah.
I was doing. And then the guy over there, let's call him Steve, was just telling them we had a hot dog. We were having hot dogs down there.
No.
They both let us go, but they were like totally okay. We had a trunk filled with green leaves and white powders. And what do they pick up to see if it was a drug? They pick up devil's shoestring. Devil's shoestring. What is this? Devil's shoestring? I, you picked up the one that sounds the worst. this, this is from the devil. This is what his shoes are made out of. This is his shoestrings. But luckily, I was free. they did not. They did not abscond with us. We did not go into a special FEMA camp. But there's other stories where I may have had to enter one, but we won't talk about that tonight.
Yeah.
America's just crazy that way. Someday you're here, someday you're in a camp.
See, like, the thing that, not wanting to get too political on the podcast, but
We never
the
do.
fear that I have, like, the fact that y'all can walk into a Walmart with a gun strapped to your hip blows my mind. And people say, well, like, violent people are going to be violent regardless. And I'm like, yes, I don't deny that. However, when someone here wants to get violent, it's as far as their arm reaches. Like, there was a guy in Red Deer who was pissed off at his doctor, so he went into the doctor's office with a machete, because we don't have guns here,
I know.
and he ended up injuring, I think, 6 people. But I mean, in cases where it's typically a machete, I can name at least 3 or 4 machete incidences. But it's like, okay, there was an incident that happened, unfortunately. However, had that been a gun, could have been a lot worse with a lot more fatalities. The guy's still violent, but I mean, y'all, yeah, y'all have your amendments and constitutions and whatnot.
Where was Salman Rushdie hurt? The author of the oh, the satanic. Oh, I can't remember it. Damn it! but he was in a place. He may have been in the UK, but he was in a stabby stab place, and he really messed up. Like his arm, the ligaments in his arms were cut. He's lost an eye. You know, you don't have to tell. We have in some of our states, we have laws where you can't have guns. You can't play with guns in a store. You know, but anybody can bring a knife anywhere. But I guess when you come to America, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Nope. And so it's just, I don't know. Like whenever people tell me stories, like, oh yeah, then there was like this cop thing, and of course, like they had like guns drawn and this and that, and I'm like, I would much rather have somebody with like a knife because if I can run faster than them, they can't hurt me.
Yeah, but I didn't do that. I didn't choose. I didn't choose rule one. I didn't choose cardio. I forgot that one. I was doing horizontal running.
Okay.
Horizontal running and vertical eating. So my luck runs in a shotgun. You know, if someone has something more powerful than me, then they win.
Yeah.
But you will be great for fast zombies. Me, on the other hand, I am a slow zombie strategist. Now, are you totally anti-gun, or are you
Not no, like there are times and places. I'm a centrist is where I sit politically.
Centrist for Canada. Centrist for Canada.
Yes, centrist for Canada.
He's
because
not like Pelosi.
Our conservatives are your liberals.
Yes.
And so, yeah, centrist for Canada. Because like I have friends and like they enjoy guns, they enjoy hunting, they go out every like May long weekend. It's like a big family tradition. Like they do all that. I'm not trying to stop them from doing that. I just don't think you need to bring a gun to Walmart.
I totally agree. Because when you are bringing a gun into Walmart strapped to you, you are making a statement to everybody.
Yep.
Do you know who Rashad Ritchie is?
I want to say I've heard the name before.
He does Indisputable.
Okay.
On YouTube. He always talks about, does this need a gun there? You know, make a judgment like that. Does this problem need a gun here? And like bringing a gun to a store, no. You do not have to catch your bread and bologna. You don't have to catch it. It will stay there. It won't be moving around the Walmart.
Exactly. And like one thing that I heard recently that I agree with is people are like, oh, well, it's for defense. No, it's not. A gun is an offensive weapon and an offensive weapon only. How do you defend with a gun? By being offensive with it.
True.
Defend with a gun without shooting it.
You can do that. If you have a good aim, you can throw the gun at somebody.
So that's
with it.
Yeah. Now, like in the end, people are going to want what they're going to want. Violent people are going to be violent.
Do you have problems like? Well, I guess you don't. Do you have school stabbings? Like mass stabbings?
Yeah, like I know
mass stabbings. Or like be mass choppings.
In my elementary school, actually, there was a student who got super pissed at a teacher, grabbed a pair of scissors, ended up stabbing the teacher a couple times, ran into the hallway, and the entire school went on lockdown.
That's not a mass stabbing. I'm saying. I mean,
we have bomb threats. Like there was actually one time a couple years ago, there was a shooting at the Walmart. Someone had brought a gun and no one knew what to do. And so they quarantined the entire like 2 city blocks. There was like every single police car in the city there. Like no one was allowed to move or leave. And it was like super tense for like 6 hours. Like they shut down 2 blocks. No one was allowed to leave restaurants, nothing like that for like at least 3 to 4 hours.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's very quaint. It's very sad that our kindergartners know what to do in America, that they have drills now about what to do. Even even I did it with the kids at when I taught children's theater. They they required me to do the protocol to put them in a room, secure them, and then basically fight the guy off and lure him away from the children. But at that point, that's all you think, you know. And as things like this and tensions grow higher, and zealots and religious fanatics become crazier, do you think that we will have problems at festivals?
Like pride parades and stuff like that.
Pride parades, pagan festivals.
Anything that disagrees with the Christian majority.
I was working at a festival at Cauldron Fest, and there was a guy who is a witch hunter down near there, and oh, you can see him on it. But you know, he gave me something to put on my resume. He said I was a renowned witch from around the world. See, isn't that
Oh,
great? That's sweet.
you
But
should quote him in your book.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I was a renowned witch from around the world. I felt so worldly.
Yes, the witch hunter.
And but they sort of tried to invade our campsite by using old trails. And the thing about it, you have never seen so many Norse and Asatru men so happy protecting a camp. It was amazing. All these Vikings running around, face paint, killed, just making sure that everything was safe. I felt like a damsel because I was escorted back to my tent. Well, not my tent. I don't tent anymore. I need running water.
Yeah, I mean, because like I will say there is some comfort with some degree of like guns around. Like for example, I used to live in South Africa, and walking around downtown Durban, there are police with AK-47s. And the first time I saw it, I freaked out. But after that, I was like, yeah, nah, like I feel really safe. Like nothing's gonna happen. Like when you go to the ATM, there's someone stationed outside of it 24/7. And because people are gonna break into the ATM and steal the money. And I never had to worry about someone coming up to me at the ATM or something like that because there was a guy with a giant gun standing right behind me. I'm like, all right, cool. Like there is some level of safety. The one thing that I just want to stop is people comparing Canada to the US because y'all are more than 10 times the population.
True.
California has more people than all of Canada.
Oh,
It's like when
Canada.
people also, it's like when people also compare it to like gun rates with Australia.
We
Also,
want to make you feel like you're our little brother.
right?
See, that's what we want to do. That's all we want.
I mean, and the way that a friend described it to me, he was from the States. He said, America is the big brother. Some people view the big brother as the protector, other views the big brother as the bully.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's a really good interpretation. Because those are sort of the two views that people have, the protector and the bully. Sometimes it changes depending on the day.
Sometimes it does, depending on the day and the leader.
Granted, Canada is not. We make it sound like we're a lot better than we actually are because we like to save face. But like for example, this year in Calgary, is the 20-year anniversary of the bathhouse raids, where 20 years ago, a bunch of cops went into a bathhouse, arrested dozens of men, and put them in jail illegally.
Is this what happened on your first night there?
No, this was back in 2002. But the fact that like those men still have that trauma, and the fact that they were simply existing in what was a safe space, and police came in, basically broke down the doors and arrested them mid activities, and treated them very hostilely. That was only 20 years ago.
Marsha P. Johnson from Elizabeth, New Jersey, but in New York City, on Christopher Street, at the Stonewall, right across from Gay Street, said enough is enough. Yeah, and threw the first brick. We cannot forget this history, because America is showing us it can be easily forgotten.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think that you know, I did the walking, I did the protesting for gay rights and for AIDS education and stuff like that. We should have never stopped marching forward, because as soon as we stop marching forward, we start becoming the scapegoat again.
Oh yeah, like when it came to, even now with monkeypox, it's been a struggle to get help because it's killing the right people.
And that's something that scared me, especially with the Supreme Court acting the way it is
Yep.
that them using that as a tool by saying that it's predominantly among, it was honestly giving me flashbacks to the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, it was.
And it's only, because in the 80s, it only started getting actual funding and help when they realized, oh, wait, straight people are being affected by AIDS too.
Reagan didn't acknowledge it until his last term.
Yeah.
You know?
And from what I hear is that he actually laughed at one point during like one of the interviews or some release when there was he was being asked about it. I believe I heard a report saying that he actually laughed at the thought of the AIDS crisis because it was killing the right people.
And people then will use it as a weapon.
Yep.
Now, there's a vaccine, right, for it as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I've gotten my monkeypox.
See, I would, especially what I would be using, not to cure monkeypox, but to help the people, is a St. Jude candle, you know, just to help people with basically preventing it, and if they do get it, making sure it's healed. I've seen some of the pock marks, and I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I've seen photos on Twitter of people saying like, hey, like this isn't a joke, like stop clubbing, like go out, book your appointments. If you can't, travel to somewhere where you can, if that's a possibility.
Then they're going to start, honestly, when that starts happening, that's when it starts becoming like a ghetto. You know, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you got to stay in this place now to make sure that we keep it contained.
Exactly.
You know, and then from there we have fallen. The mighty rainbow has fallen from the skies.
Like one of the things that just shocks me, because like I'm so like, you know me, I dive headfirst into the deep end with everything I do. So there's another podcast I'm on called The Gay Agenda YYC, and I've been going every couple months to give updates on my adventures of a baby gay. First episode I did was the day after I came out, and we're about to do our 1 year episode recap. And
where is that?
The host, it's on all streaming platforms, called The Gay Agenda YYC. And the host, Terry, he's a friend of mine, he's like, no baby gay goes into what you do and cares about what you care about. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, because I started going into like the origins of like queer slang and how it was appropriated and adapted from AAVE in the Black community, and where like voguing came from and underground ballroom culture, and how that helped shape Black and Latinx queer communities, and how it originated in New York, and then branching out to like I dove headfirst into like linguistics and Ebonic terminology and origins of things, like even main word like calling someone basic originated from the Black community. And now if we call someone basic, they're a white girl with a pumpkin spice latte and Uggs. And I talked to all these people, these baby gays, people my age, and I'm like, hey, have you heard of Marsha P. Johnson? Do you know what STAR is? Like, are you familiar with, and I list all these things, like I've never heard of any of that. And they don't care. That's the thing. They have no
that's where the danger lies. When they are not ready to march, when they are not ready to protest, then they sort of forfeit their right. You know?
I mean, it kind of goes back to, there's this old poem, and I'm going to totally butcher, but the gist is basically, they first came for the Jews, but I wasn't a Jew, and so I said nothing. Then they came for the Catholics, but I wasn't a Catholic, so I did nothing. Then they came for the Christians, but I wasn't a Christian, and it goes down. And then they came for me, and there was no one to stand up for me.
I wish that could ring through people's ears, because especially in America, because I'm going to say, I can't speak for Canada, but right now our people are going crazy. And just finally saying, we're standing together. This is what we believe in. It is not what you say. What you are saying is unconstitutional. This is the voice of the people.
Yeah.
And the voice of the people is what makes America strong. Is that when we are the strongest when we work together.
Yeah.
But smart presidents will section us off, so we do not have the oomph of the great sleeping giant.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not sure where Canada is going to be heading with all of this. I do know that there's always ripple effects, especially with a country that shares the longest border in the world with another country.
True.
So y'all have a lot of influence. And I mean, I've offered it to you and to a couple others where, you know what, if things start getting really crazy, and if it starts where they start like hunting down the gays, come find me.
You don't think I'm going to come find you? Me and my big hat and my red suitcase are going to come to your door. Hey, time for a party. America's falling to shit.
I'll let you stay with me. I'll let you stay with me as long as you make me some Southern comfort food.
You are looking for that 10 pounds.
I need it. Yeah. I will say another thing.
But you're a vegetarian, aren't you?
Used to be.
What broke you?
So I actually used to be vegan, and then I went vegetarian. Moving to South Africa is what broke me. Hard to be vegetarian in South Africa. But yeah, no, like one thing that also really helped me just appreciate the South and Appalachian culture and all that is y'all's food. One, super good. And two, I was like, all right, I'm moving out on my own. It's the first time I've lived by myself. I am a broke bitch. Then I realized, wait, there's an entire amazingly rich culture that has taken the cheapest, most affordable pieces of food and made the most amazing dishes with it. So then I started looking into cooking Southern food.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, one thing is that I wish I had an oven because then I could actually do more. But like I got my first cast iron when I moved out. I was trying to season it properly.
There are, if you look online, there are Cuisinarts that are stove, air fryer, and like I think it'll wash your hands or something. I don't know, but it's amazing. it's like has this multiple purpose, but it's also an oven. So you could have an oven in your. Can you have an oven in your little place?
I mean, like I have an air fryer, so I'm sure I could look into something like that. But yeah, no, when I move into a bigger apartment, yeah, because I got my first cast iron and I got onto Southern food TikTok. There's this one account called it's called like Granny used to make, and she shares her granny and her mama's recipes. And when I was looking at how to like properly clean a cast iron and how to season it and all that, I didn't trust anybody who did not have a Southern drawl.
Have you ever eaten turkey penis?
I have not.
You've never eaten oh, you during Thanksgiving, which your Thanksgiving is before or after ours?
Ours is in October.
And basically, have you ever cooked a turkey?
Yep.
You pull out the turkey neck, and it looks like a turkey penis. Looks like a turkey penis. So I did a TikTok where I'm like, "Ma, what's in the pot? Is it turkey penis?" And she said, "I'll turkey your penis." I don't know what turkey my penis is, but it was. I love saying it. And I'm going to tell you, you know what that is?
What?
That is incense for the holidays. You put a little sage in, you put a little butter in, and I'm gonna tell you, cook that up, and it starts getting everybody in the mood. They start hearing bells, lit candles. They start seeing gourds everywhere. It creates the ambiance needed.
Yeah. I remember in the one where it was showing how to clean the cast iron. He said, you know, like some people say that like you can like now like they're made different now and you can use soap. You know what? Mema said don't use soap, you don't use soap. All that you need is a paper towel and some water. Maybe a little salt, and then that's all that you need. And so anytime I need any type of like true like factual help, I run to the South.
I run to the South. They know everything. Well, we can't help being perfect.
No.
Practically perfect in every way. We're nice people dancing to good country music.
Oh yeah, and your bluegrass?
Well, I'm going to tell you, some of the new grass that I hear coming out of Canada rocks my world. I want you to look up bird and fish.
I think you sent me a video of them. They were sitting barefoot in the creek.
Yes.
Yeah.
I fell in love. And when I saw that they were real, because I got in contact with them, because I had a moment when I watched that. I am a dear lover of Joni Mitchell. And one of my favorite songs is Both Sides Now. And when I heard it to Bluegrass, I was like, I love you. And they broke up. But I'm hoping that somehow, some way, they will have a come back together tour, and then they'll take off from there.
Yeah. Actually, recently I've switched the type of music that I do my ritual work to. Because before I would use like drums and chimes and like stuff like that, and recently I've actually switched to instrumental Appalachian folk music.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it gives like a different vibe to my work that I do. It's really nice.
I tend to use sort of bluegrassy, humid type of music. You know, the one thing that differentiates Greater Appalachia from the Appalachian, you have cool wet, where we have the hot, sticky moist. Like you can feel it laying on your skin.
Mm.
But that's part of the energy, is that because the water's coming from the karst system, so it's all underneath you, and the heat's heating it up, and you are heavy with sweat. That's
Yeah,
what
here
that's where you find the
it's
magic.
very it's very dry here. So
Lotion up, y'all.
dry and cold, and we don't know how to deal with the heat. Give us -40. We can deal with that.
Well, don't worry. If eventually Michigan's going to become Florida, so watch out when Disney starts wanting to put a place there. Watch out. Wag of the finger at that. Once Disney starts looking at property there, that is when you know the world is going to really change. When we're no longer going to have Washington uh, wines, we're going to have Canadian wines, Alberta wines.
I mean, at least when we start merging, y'all will have better beer.
True. Do you wait? Are you saying that our beers are bad?
I'm not a beer drinker personally,
Neither am I.
but from what I hear, um, American beer is like having sex in a canoe. It's fucking close to water.
How dare you?
That's just based off all my friends who drink beer. They're like, yeah, nah, American beer is so watered down. It's, I don't know. Come
I'm
up
not
here
a,
and you'll have to tell me.
I'm not a beer drinker, but I would say, but I'm sticking up for my country. How dare you? I,
What's
I
your what's your drink of choice? Your floppy hat tells me it's a martini.
it is. It is a very dirty martini, and either a dirty martini or I really do love a nice Bloody Mary.
Okay.
It has to be spicy. It cannot be. It has to be. It has to. It has to hurt me a little bit.
Yeah, I
And
can't remember.
let me guess your drink. To me, you seem fruity. You seem really. See, if you had maybe the twirly handlebars, I would say like an old fashioned. But I'm like, he looks like a sangria kind of guy to me.
Interesting.
What are you?
Um, I enjoy a tequila sunrise,
Good call.
and um, I'm a fan of things that are mixed with vodka. Also, because this is me supporting my country, in the city that I live now,
Mm-hmm.
Calgary invented the Caesar.
What is
Do you not know what a Caesar is?
No.
Boy, you don't know what a Caesar is? Oh, it's a classic.
What is a Caesar?
Okay. Let me get here. Where is it? Sorry, that's my dishwasher.
Dishwashers sing in Canada?
Yours don't?
No. What is a Caesar drink?
Okay, so it's like a Bloody Mary, but it uses clamato juice.
I love those. I have to tell you, my friend Irene Campos introduced me to clamato, and I'm going to tell you, the Bloody Mary was never the same. Never the same.
Because it's a Caesar. It
That's,
says
that is very delicious.
a classic recipe is a lime wedge, celery salt for the rim, vodka, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, a dash of hot pepper sauce like Tabasco.
I love the salt around it. You know,
Yeah.
I really enjoy a good rim.
Yeah, clamato juice and a celery stick.
Not too much on the celery stick. Now you can put a spare rib on the side with a sausage. Yeah, I saw that. Have you ever seen some of the crazy Bloody Marys in the United States, where there's like 12 shrimp, a rack of ribs? Have you never seen that? Look at some of the Vegas Bloody Marys. They are outrageous. It is a meal in a cup.
I also need to introduce you to poutine. Because what y'all have down there is an insult to poutine.
Okay, if you show me poutine, I want to show you New Jersey or New York disco fries.
All right.
And I will be open. I will be open to the poutine. I will take it into my mouth and I will enjoy it. And I will tell you what I honestly think about it if you do the same.
Yep. Because I treat disco fries completely differently. It's a different dish from poutine.
You have cheese curds.
Yep.
Except I think cheese curd, like, do your cheese curds taste better than the cheese curds here? Because the cheese curds here taste like mozzarella. Like, I would like something more like a cheddar, something saltier, something brinier.
Traditionally, you use mozzarella cheese curds. If I were to buy cheese curds anywhere in the States, it would have to be from Wisconsin because it's the only place I trust.
There are some great artisans all around. Like in Kentucky, I can name two already of great cheese artisans.
I tried Canadian style poutine when I was in Seattle. No. It made me so sad.
Now I'm gonna tell you, I make one hell of a cheesesteak, but it's not a Philly cheesesteak, but it's a Kentucky cheesesteak that I learned from a guy in he was going out of business and he taught me his recipe, and it is wonderful and it'll clog your arteries. But it's not a Philadelphia cheesesteak.
One dish I want to learn how to make, aside from proper cornbread, because ours is, it's sad. Our attempts are
not corn
pone. I mean, like when you chew it, it's gritty.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be gritty, cornbread.
No, it is a little bit.
I guess depending on what southern state you're from, I've heard very strong opinions that it's never supposed to be gritty and dry and break apart like a sandcastle.
You are now going to cause some fights among the states.
Oh,
because in Kentucky, the cornbread must be so dry It takes all the water out of your mouth.
No, what? This is completely counterproductive to everything that I've ever been told. It's supposed to be moist and like holding together, so like you pick it up and you can bite into it and it doesn't fall apart.
How are you supposed to stop things up with it? How are you getting your beans
Ooh,
and your greens?
fighting words.
How you get it? If you're using moist cornbread, it's all gonna drip through your fingers. But if you're using dry cornbread, then it becomes like a thick sort of gravy.
Fascinating. Huh. Cultural differences between the states. That makes sense. And the other thing I want to try is grits.
Cornbread, mashed potatoes, and macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. I've tried to find a good grits recipe, and I want to try to make those.
Are you making grits or hominy grits?
Never heard of hominy grits.
Hominy grits are about that big.
Normal grits.
And the normal grits are sort of like they have a consistency very similar to cream of wheat. Yep. And then eating them, how you eat your grits is controversy, different places. Because you can eat them sweet, you can eat them savory, you can eat them salty, you can eat them cheesy, you know. I like mine sweet, but that's because I'm sugar myself.
That you are.
Well, thank you for being with us. Do you want to tell any of us where to follow you?
Ooh, okay. Social media I'm most active on is TikTok. It's DMacMillan, MacMillan. You can follow me on TikTok there, and that's pretty much the only social media I use. Other than that, if I may, quick shout out to Magical Elements in Red Deer. You can Google that, and she's more than willing. Wonderful witch, wonderful woman, so helpful in my journey, Corey. And she sends and ships her stuff to all over the States and the South and all that. So if you want some good quality, like handmade, proper intention, not mass produced, Southern Conjure materials, check out her store.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'd like to tell everybody out there, be kind to one another, love one another, reach out to one another. And like Grandpa Sackwich always used to say, do you know what he used to say?
I do not.
Don't be an asshole. I love you. Have a great time.
All right.
Did it. Are you
still recording?
Still recording? Oh, and media for all. There it is. Woohoo! Technology.